Let me remind you again about the gospel. Jesus says that whoever welcomes you welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Whoever welcomes a prophet in the name of a prophet will receive a prophet's reward. And whoever welcomes a righteous person in the name of a righteous person will receive a word, the reward of the righteous person. And whoever gives a cup of cold water to the one of these little ones in the name of a disciple, truly I tell you, none of these will lose their reward. Now you may be saying, Father William, this is just a crazy stuff. Since I started reading the gospel, we don't choose which lectionary to preach on. It comes on in a package, and we have to follow the lectionary. But these are some of the passages that sometimes you would say, oh, let me just preach this next time. Last Sunday, my theme was take up your cross and follow me. And today I'm talking about the saints' marching orders. When you look really in the text of Matthew itself, it's packed with bad news. Right from the beginning, the whole chapter from chapter 10, verse 1, if you look at it, it is packed about Jesus talking about dangerous enemies, Jesus talking about hard times, Jesus talking about rejection, he's talking about betrayal, he's talking about family divisions, he's talking about persecutions, he's talking about imprisonment, he's talking about beatings. But Jesus warns his disciples. Can you imagine? He's calling them that come, I'm going to give you a job. And then he tells them that the job I'm going to give you is a tough one. You have to be prepared. But he warns them that the mission trip they're about to take is not easy one. He says they will face persecutions in chapter 10, verse 16. Jesus makes it clear that the way is not free. It's not just a highway. It's not just a straight way. There are thorns on the way. There are many trials on the way. There are troubles on the way. There are many dangers on the way. But they need to take up their cross and follow. No going back, no turning back, no turning back. But what really makes this very interesting is that Jesus Christ assured them, that he will be with them, he will smoothen the road and the rugged paths for their feet. And then he says, I will be there with you. In Matthew chapter 28, he says, Lo, I will be with you to the age of this world. So let me just ask you a question. If you are given a job description, as much as Matthew puts it, would you raise your hand and say, I'll take it? I'll go for it? Would you take it? I don't know. When the bishop in Mississippi appointed me to go to the mission field in the Delta, he called me and gave me a very nice lunch in a very prestigious hotel in Jackson, Mississippi. And then he described about this job. Then he told me that I was going to Delta, Mississippi. He used the definite article, the Delta. The moment I heard the Delta, I thought it is where they make Delta Airlines. I was so excited about it. You know, everything he said, I didn't care, but I was just saying, wow, at least it is better than Jackson, you know, the small town of Jackson. So I was thinking, you know, what I'm going to do day 1, day 2, day 3. But then as the conversation started thickening, the bishop said, I warn you, do not take your family with you until the ground is leveled. Then he said, I warn you. He started telling me these warnings. Eventually, I was so scared. And he said, we've never done this before. This is the first time. When you succeed, it's going to be a diocesan mission. Well, did I know? I drove 3 hours in a field that is straight like nothing. You can see miles and miles. Field of cotton. There was no gas station in between. There's no house that I saw. It's just this road that is straight like nothing, going nowhere. I started asking myself, why did I commit myself? Now, the disciples probably may have thought the similar way I thought. But Jesus Christ, because he said that I will be with you, probably that was a courage. Probably that is something. The mission was inevitable for them to go because he gave them that assurance. Let me tell you this. This mission had 3 apostolic importance points. First, he had told them that they need to go and heal the sick. The second thing they were asked to do was to cast out demons. And the third thing that he told them to do was to preach that the kingdom of God is at hand. At least they had the mission statement there. So today's gospel, we move again to the conclusion of chapter 10. Just a few verses. He's telling them now only 2 things. And if you forget everything I've said, remember these at least 2 words. Welcoming and being welcomed, accepting and being accepted. Again, let me refer to you, my journey in the Delta. Everywhere I went, instead of people saying, we're glad to have you, they used to say, you have an accent, where are you from? You know, that alone meant to isolate me. Oh, then I began expressing myself, where I'm coming from, blah, blah, blah. It was really hard. It was hard for me. You know, it was hard. Even when I go in the pulpit and preach, by the time I get out, you know, get my robes off, people are gone. I asked myself, what am I doing here? The disciples probably were asking themselves. The welcoming of being or feeling welcomed is very, very important. Being accepted or feeling that the people accept you. You and I, maybe you can resonate or think or remember when you are ever sometimes involved in a situation when you felt you are not welcome, when you felt you are not accepted, and you feel that your status is diminished. Jesus again tells the disciples that whoever, he's not saying that all will welcome you, but he said, whoever welcomes you, listen to this, whoever welcomes you welcomes me, and also welcomes the Father. So which means the message you are being empowered that whenever you are accepted in someone's home, you are going to make a difference. Now you may say, Father, I'm not a prophet. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a missionary. I'm not a pastor. Am I really, does that count? Listen to what he says. Whoever welcomes you. What is he saying? Is he saying a prophet? Is he saying a priest? No, he's saying that a disciple. What is a disciple? A student. If you allow yourself to be Christ student, and someone welcomes you, which means that your entry into that home, you are bringing Jesus with you. And the Father in heaven is there. Do you see what we miss when we don't welcome strangers in our territory, in our circle, in our homes? He who receives a righteous man, listen to what he says, receives also the righteous man's reward. If we don't receive, we don't, oh my goodness, we don't get. The disciples are to act at this time as Jesus's ambassador wherever they are. We are ambassadors of Christ wherever we are. That's why I say that this is the saints' marching order. Don't care whether they welcome you. Don't care whether they don't welcome you, just go anywhere. We are on a marching order. Jesus, in Matthew's gospel, Jesus telling them, is talking about giving and receiving or refusing the hospitality. So today we are going to talk about hospitality. You know, if they don't welcome you, don't care. Because for him, remember in John chapter 1, verse 11, what did he say? He said that I came to my own, but my own people did not receive me. I love verse 12, which says, to those who received me, I gave them the opportunity or the chance to be called the children of God. So if they denied the Son of Man, who are you? Don't feel so bad when you are not welcome. Don't feel so bad when you are not received. They did it to him. But all you have to do, always in whatever, be the ambassador of Christ regardless of what. I was trying to find out about these two words because they bothered me so much, the hospitality and the welcoming. So what I did, I Googled out to find out how many countries in the world that at least they have their two hands to welcome strangers. Guess what? United States was not one of them. The first one was Mexico. The second one was Taiwan, India, Colombia, Brazil, China, Italy, Spain, Thailand, Indonesia, Belgium. Then I scratched my head and said, why? I didn't know. I thought that maybe we are a welcoming nation. No, not at all. Then I also said, let me find out, about the countries that, these are the countries with the hospitality. Let me see the countries that are welcoming. Hospitality is where you find someone who is hungry and give food or glass of water or shelter. So those are the countries I just read. But then I said, what about those which really embrace, open their arms and welcome others? So there are few countries that are really on the top, in the whole world globally. The first one is Myanmar. Myanmar is very good in welcoming guests and foreigners and strangers. Kenya, Uganda, Indonesia, Japan, Colombia, India, Ethiopia, United States is not one of them. So what's going on? What is it? You and I as a Christian living in this country, what is it? Let me tell you about hospitality. The ancient Israel, I'm not saying the Israel today, but the ancient one. The ancient Israel was tied to a family community. If you welcomed a member of a family, that means you welcomed the entire family. If you loved my child, you loved all my family. Let me define a family here. And we have a different cultures. In Africa or Asian, whatever Hebrew culture, when we say family, we don't mean just a husband, a wife, and children. We mean a husband, family, uncle, nephew, whatever. It is a whole lot. So when you love me, you care for me, you are caring for thousands of people. That was a hospitality in the Jewish culture. Showing hospitality was considered an act of giving and a demonstration of a faithful to God. So it was very, very important. Showing hospitality to a guest was considered an act of obedience to God's will. And it should be, even to us today. Sometimes, you know, whatever you give, whatever you do, I am very grateful for St. Augustine's that opens the door to strangers and tell them, come, feel at home, eat and drink. We are here for you. I am very grateful. We don't bother to ask them their names. We don't even ask them the addresses they come from. We don't even ask them, you know, what was whatever, but they just come and they're entertained. You know, I always listen to some of them when they're walking out and say, God bless you. That is a blessing. To just allow someone that you don't even know a name, an address, but you give food and a glass of a cold water. It is very, by the way, it is a religious and a social obligation, especially to strangers, when we allow them into our midst and allow them to covenant with us. Before COVID-19, there was a guy that used to come and sit in the back pew. He did it several times. At first, he looked like as if he was just a homeless from across the street. After a period of time, he said that I used to volunteer in a feeding program many years ago. Can you imagine? He began to become part of us. I am very grateful that the church members welcomed him. And during the peace, they hugged him and he felt at home. Thank you for what you did. So in the ancient Israel, that's what they used to do. Travelers would wait at the gate and for an offer of hospitality, and they would bring them bread and water. Today, if you ever stand on someone's gate, they'll call police on you. They'll think that you want to break in. That is what has happened. And then we claim that we are a Bible Belt nation. We are Christians. What kind of Christianity is that? You know, the Bible itself also supports this, what I'm talking about. If you read the first 5 books, the Torah, 5 books of Moses, you'll find that Abraham, just go in chapter 18, Genesis chapter 18, and you see what happened. Abraham invited 3 strangers, you know, from Mamre, and he invited them to come to his home, in his tent, to relax. And then he told them just to feel to relax, and he went, provided meal, and brought them food and water to these strangers he didn't know. Let's go down again in the book of Genesis, Genesis chapter 24. If you look at verse 28, Abraham sent his servant to go look for a bride for his son Isaac. And then as they went down there, it is a desert, there's nothing. And then they found this beautiful girl, you know, Rebecca, who graciously watered the travelers' thirsty horses. That is hospitality. So when we look in the Old Testament, there are so many stories. What about Elijah? Elijah who went to, you know, during King Ahab, a bad king. You know, King Ahab, who had decided not to care about God. But Elijah was sent to Zarephath, found this widow, a widow who told him he doesn't have food. She only has something for their dinner. She was picking firewood to make the last meal, and then her and the son, they would eat and die. Elijah said, don't worry, I'm coming in. If they welcome you, they have welcomed Jesus, and the Father is in there. Miracles is about to happen. And Elijah told this widow in Zarephath that you will never lack food at all, and your oil will not go dry. They were there for 3.5 years during the drought, and they never went. You see what we miss when we don't open up, when we don't welcome? We miss the blessing. Blessing goes. This widow would have died in the sun. Down the road again in 2 Kings chapter 8, we see also a Shunammite who welcomed, who welcomed a couple that welcomed Elisha. You remember this story? They welcomed they had no child, but because they welcomed Elisha into the midst, Elisha provided that blessing. They conceived, they bear a child, and she finally got a child. After a few days, a child died, and they went back to Elisha and said, "What is going on?" Elisha prayed for this couple, and a child was revived. You see what we miss when we don't take in strangers just because they don't look like us, they don't speak like us, they are not our status. Let me just, I don't want to take you in a Bible study, but I want to tell you that what I'm saying is a proof, in biblical proof. Let me just, quickly give you a snapshot what the Bible says about hospitality. Hebrews chapter 13. If you have a pen, you can write it down. I will not repeat it. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 2. It says, "Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels." Some of these are angels. 1 Peter 4, verse 9 says, "Show hospitality to one another without grumbling." Romans 12, verse 13 says, "Contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality." Leviticus 19:34, "You shall treat the strangers who sojourners with you as native among you, and you shall love him as yourself." Titus 1, verse 8, "Be hospitable, a lover of God, self-controlled, upright, holy, and disciplined." Acts 28, verse 2, "The native people showed us unusual kindness." That is Paul speaking. "For they kindled the fire and welcomed us all because it began to rain and was cold." Mark 9:41 says, "For truly I say to you, whoever gives a cup of water to drink because you belong to Christ will by no means lose his reward." And finally, Hebrews 13, verse 8, "Do not neglect to do good and to share what you have, for such a sacrifice are pleasing to God." What am I saying to you? Think for a moment. What would the world look like? Just think about it. If we all followed these principles that as they are written in the scriptures, what do you think that the world would look like if we followed what Elijah and Elisha did? What would the world look like? The world is crazy. The world is what it is because we are greedy. Few have it, many don't. And so because they do, poverty rises, and then discrimination comes in, injustice kicks in. And we as Christians sometimes embrace those horrible acts, thinking that they are a good personal, religious norms. They are not. In a religious norm, the Bible tells us that love your neighbor as you love yourself. So if I love you as much as I do love myself, then I should not eat and you starve. We have to share. But now when we bring in capitalism, oh, I have to have it, then you have to beg from me and I have to take control of you. That is not a Christian value. You know, Goethe once said, if we treat people as we ought to be treated, we help them to become what they are capable of becoming. Let me repeat that. If we treat people as we ought to be treated, we help them become what they are capable of becoming. Isn't that what is at stake when we receive or welcome one another? Isn't that what the gospel is saying this morning? When we welcome someone, we should act towards him as if we are welcoming Christ himself in our lives. To tell you the truth, first 6 months in the Delta was hell for me. I cried every day. I went in the restaurant, sit there without knowing that every person, that restaurant only welcomes members. You know, do you know what they call country club? I saw the cars going there on Sunday, and I also just drove by, and I sat there in the country club, and nobody was attending on me. Nobody was greeting me. Nobody said anything. I saw people serving. Not even did they bring me the menu to ask me, what do you want to eat? Someone said, can we have your membership card, sir? I did not understand what they're talking about. They said, members only. Man, I walked there. I wish that you saw me. My head was down. I didn't want, you know, I tried to raise my collar so that they can see that this is a priest nobody cared about. And the people, the bunch of the people who were there, probably they were coming from church services. Not even a single one said, this is a priest. Let me stand in for him. I am a member. Let him eat on my, no. I just walked up, went in my car and drove off, and I asked myself, what is this? And they said, that is a Delta, Mississippi. Yeah. Friends, let me tell you this. Hospitality has there is no one, I have never seen people going to college to study and have a degree in hospitality. They teach hotel management, but they don't teach hospitality. That is your passion. That is your personal attitude. Hospitality to others is a service and worship to Jehovah. Our loving and merciful treatment to others draws them closer to God. Do you know what you have done to someone? Really preaches a big gospel. Just a small token that you have given. It becomes a gospel in itself. So in these difficult times, we need Christians who aren't ashamed to their faith. We need Christians who don't compromise just because of the situation. When Jesus comes to the end of his message, he told the disciples and warned them, that they will be a reward. Our reward is not yet. It is still there. Whatever we have done, we are still waiting for that reward. Let me tell you this. Jesus explains here, whatever you did to one of the least, meaning that person who does not even have an ID. If you did it to one of these, oh my goodness, then you have done it also for me. We know when we go in his name, he goes with us. When we help his people, also we are helping him. Jesus don't have hands, his hands is yours. Jesus does not have feet, his feet is yours. Jesus does not have eyes, his eyes is yours. Jesus does not have a head, his head is yours. Use it. Be hospitable. Receive strangers. Welcome them. Walk them extra mile. Even though we are already tired and a bit frustrated because we don't have time and energy. Jesus said, I will be with you till the end. He is on the receiving end of our merciful transaction. He sees the single mother struggling with the children. He sees the poor person walking on the street. He sees someone who is hungry. Don't you see him too? What do? Do you lock the door so that you can eat? So faithful witnesses becomes an instrument through which others are blessed. If you want to be a blessing in the world, then confess Christ before people. And how do you confess Christ before people? You need to be, if you are riding in a train and you see an elderly standing, why can't you give that elderly seat and stand? That is being faithful. You are proclaiming Christ. There's sometimes people look at you twice and say, you must be a Christian because of the action you have just done. Boldly standing unashamed of Christ is what we are asked to do in this world. In doing that, your life becomes the source of unimaginable blessing and the reward to others. This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying, that the saints are given a marching order. It is not a, by the way, it is not a trademark. It is a fact that we need to be a Christian in season and out of season. We need to be Christians whether we have or we don't have. If we don't have a glass of water, offer a prayer. If you don't have, you cannot afford a prayer, walk a second mile with that person. Let me conclude by telling you this. Dr. Ray Richard Peterson, the president of a Keep Believing ministry, once said that if you are going to be a Christian, be one. We need that more than ever today. Don't just claim to be a member of a church or a Christian when your attitude and actions cannot match with what you claim to be. You have seen politicians who devoted themselves to do even horrible things just for the sake of saving their parties. What about you? Are we ready to take up our cross, as I said last week? If we want the church to matter and our lives to matter, we need to change our attitude because the reward is there. Friends, we have a very brief time in this world. Our time is ticking. But ask yourself, when the world ends today, where will you be? When the world ends today and your actions are revealed, what are they going to find? I challenge us again, as these marching orders, please receive and accept. In doing so, you're just bringing Christ in someone's heart without even knowing. In doing so, you're becoming a disciple and you're discipling others. In doing so, you are bringing a reality of Christ to the people who never even had the chance to know that Christ is, oh my goodness, that Christ loves. Christ loved us, loved you. That's why he died for you. And he gave everything he had so that you may have an everlasting life. Why can't you give others? God bless you, watch over you, and give you plenty and plenty to give and share with others. Amen.